And so if you look closely in the middle where the pilot sits, you'll notice that is not a pilot's chair. That's a casket. Because when your bravest warriors die on the battlefield, they pick up their bodies, force them to keep living, and this is a sarcophagus.
Oh.
That's awesome.
So that they have to continue to fight.
Welcome back to Eat, Sleep, Nerd, a show where you can check out, go AFK, and relax with us as we discuss all things nerd. I'm your dorky DJ, Corey Winter, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about Warhammer, specifically Warhammer 40k. So I am joined by my nerdy brother, Josh Winter, our geeky friends, Jason Summer, and Britt Arp in person! Both of you in studio.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Craziness.
It's surreal. Look at us.
Surreal, which is, and also like not entirely real at the same time.
Are we really here? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. We're on one. So
we might have to separate them. But this episode is kind of it's a special one for us because we never really had a show and tell before. And Josh, you are our resident Warhammer fan.
Yes.
We all like the idea of it, but none of us have really played it yet.
Me either.
Josh actually came over to my house like a month ago, and we were like, hey, let's play Warhammer. And it took so long to get through the rules, we just gave up and went to bed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I
So-
have attempted Warhammer one time, and then there were like rulers. And as soon as I saw the ruler involved, I was like, I gotta go.
That sounds like a crime. Attempted Warhammer.
Josh and I actually played the original Warhammer. Back when
Warhammer
we were,
Fantasy.
Fantasy, back when we were little. That was a lot of fun. So we were very excited about 40k. But Josh has been researching it for who knows how long now. He's been getting all into the models, constructing them himself, painting them himself. So in this episode, we're just going to be kind of talking about what Warhammer is. Josh is going to be showing off some of the figures he's been doing. And we're just going to see where the conversation goes. So Josh, where do we begin here? What is Warhammer?
Warhammer is it's a lot.
Well,
is
yes.
what it is.
So before you even start, like Warhammer today is a multimedia everything. It has video games, obviously tabletop. It's going to be an Amazon television series.
Henry Cavill.
Yeah. So it's everything nowadays. But what is it? Just
So like super high level.
Yeah.
30,000 feet. Warhammer at its core is a tabletop game.
Mm-hmm.
They have a few different versions of it. Like you said, we're mostly talking 40K. But the idea is, generally speaking, you start collecting an army. That's the part I've sucked the most at because I keep thinking individual models are cool. So I keep picking different ones. So I actually have not amassed enough for like a full size army, which is roughly 2,000 points. But that's also okay because, like I said before, I've yet to actually play a game. But you collect your army, you build your army. They do not come assembled. It's a model kit.
Yeah.
And you snip them, you put them together, you paint them. Literally in the rules, you're not supposed to play with an unpainted army.
Really?
You can, but you win by getting a certain number of victory points. And literally the first easy points to get are your army is tabletop ready or battle ready.
wow.
Okay.
And that literally just means it is based and painted with at least 2 colors.
That's interesting.
That is cool.
So like you don't have to, but you're literally going to start the game points down versus your opponent if it's not painted.
So a little effort.
A little effort. And the idea
on the paint.
And the idea is that it's supposed to be a hobby that has multiple facets and multiple layers to it, right? There's some people who get super into the actual fighting, and there are tournaments, and you have people who like literally travel across the country to play other people, and they bring all their models with them in like specialty containers and stuff like that. It gets really cool and really intense. And then kind of on the flip side, I've discovered there's a whole field of people who are kind of a little bit more like me. And it's like, I just like building the little people and painting them. And once I started, that's when I fell into kind of being enamored with the lore of it.
I was just about to ask you. So what's from a high level, what's the lore of 40K? What starts, what's the story that brings you to the game?
Ooh-wee. Okay, so
High level.
Yeah, so high level, like in the most vaguest terms possible. It's 40,000 years in the future. Hence the
Makes
number,
sense. Yeah.
right? You with me so far?
Yeah,
okay,
makes
so
sense.
40,000 years into the future.
Hang on. 40,000?
40,000 years.
40,000. Okay. Okay.
40,000 years
Zero.
in the future. Yes.
Okay.
And there's essentially 4-ish factions at war. And it's the Empire of Man, which again makes up several sub factions. Then you have the what they call the Xenos, which is all your aliens. There's a few different varieties. There's the Tyranids, which are the bug folks. There's essentially space elves, dark space elves, and then literally just aliens. They kind of like look like your cliche, just aliens.
Okay.
Like think signs.
Okay. Like the gray men.
Like literally gray men.
Gotcha. Okay.
Aliens, right?
Okay.
And then you have the forces of chaos.
Badass name.
Yes. And what's neat about that is every good sci-fi franchise has its way of going faster than light, right? Mm-hmm. So Star Trek, you've got warp. Star Wars, you have hyperdrives. In 40K, this all spun off of Warhammer Fantasy.
Okay.
Which is the medieval setting, right? Dwarves, elves, magic, all that fun stuff, right?
Magic.
Yes, magic. So the writers, when they were doing for 40K, were just like, okay, so what if it was like, magic? And that's how they go faster than life.
Okay.
But you can't just call it magic, right? Because it's sci-fi. It's not supposed to be magic. So instead, they kind of do it like a lot of sci-fi franchises where they go through a different dimension when they're going faster than light, right? That's what allows them to do it. So they go through the warp. Okay. And the warp is where all the sci-fi magic comes from. It's also where demons live. And so every time you travel through the warp, you are risking encountering and bringing with you demonic forces.
This really makes me think of Event Horizon.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Go through faster than light and you accidentally go through hell.
Right.
Kind of the same. Kind of the same idea. Only these guys don't have Sam Neill with them. So
terrifying movie. Anyway.
No, but I mean, in essence, that's it. And naturally, none of these people get along. And I kind of refer to it as the
well, that's not good.
I kind of refer to it as like the anti-Star Trek, because Star Trek is like, oh, yay, we did it, and it's a utopia, and maybe not everyone's on board, but like we're gonna get them there, and we'd rather you be our friends and stuff like that. No, these dudes are like die, like die, everyone die. And while it's certainly easiest to like relate to the humans, like you got to be clear, the humans are not the good guys here. Like there's no one is the good guys. Like they're all terrible, horrible people who just want everyone else to die.
I like that.
Yes. No, really. Like it's
no follow-ups.
They even make it clear, like in the, anytime you buy one of the new editions, it has the big manual, the Bible, right?
Yeah.
And you thumb through it, and like it tells you right from the start, like this is the end of mankind. They're not going to get out of this.
Yeah.
And it's just because you're fighting a war. No matter which faction you pick, you're fighting a war with 18 other factions. Like no one wins.
I just find that, I find that just super interesting, because there's always the trope in like World of Warcraft, everything, where there's like a good and there's an evil. And I think that's super interesting that they're just straight up like, yeah, everybody sucks, but you can pick which team.
Yeah, like pick the suckage that appeals to you.
For sure. For sure.
And you can see the most iconic figure is the Space Marine.
Yeah.
And that's probably the faction that everyone kind of stumbles into first when you start playing. Because it's always in the starter set. Like, no matter what starter set you get, it comes with a few Space Marines. And also because there's like literally 200 different chapters of Space Marine. So even though everyone has the same figures as you, and unless you go super basic like I did and do the Ultramarines, which is like the Space Marine, like you could be as individual as you want, and they play different too. They have different rules, they have different buffs, different nerfs. Like it can really feel like something you put together.
So for the non Warhammer people out there, what is a buff and a nerf?
So a buff is a perk to any stat.
Okay.
A nerf would be the opposite of that.
Like softening the staff.
Correct.
Instead, like nerfing it.
Correct.
Like
so like some factions are very shooter heavy. Some factions are very good at close combat.
Cool. Okay.
It's very rare to have one that's particularly balanced in both. Like
because then you have something that's too.
Yeah, if you play with faction B, like it's faction A, you're probably going to get creamed because they're just not the same.
Yeah.
Okay. And they don't play the same. And you need to know that going in. And that's another one of the 87 reasons that I really haven't played that much. But it's just so much fun to paint.
I was going to say, it does seem that a lot of people could just enjoy Warhammer just building the figures and painting them and never actually play. Like, is that common?
Yeah, I didn't know that until, again, Corey mentioned, like, we tried to do this when we were younger.
Yeah.
Like middle school heading into high school.
Yeah.
So like 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. But we were limited by the, being children part of it. And we just didn't have money. And this is not a cheap hobby. And so we never really could afford to get super into it.
Yeah.
But this time around, before I went broke, yeah, I know, right? I was able to actually start getting back into it. But what I realized is something that's different versus the last time we tried to do this is YouTube is the thing now. And you jokingly asked, like, what music do I listen to when I paint? I don't. I watch other people painting them on YouTube, and it feels like I'm painting with a buddy.
Well,
yeah.
It wasn't a joke. I mean,
oh yeah, no,
I meant it.
Yeah. No. So the sincere answer to your sincere question was I watch other people on YouTube paint while I'm painting.
Right.
And it teaches me how to paint and different techniques and things like that. But also, like I said, it feels like you're painting with a buddy. But yeah, it turns out they all end up saying the same thing. Yeah, I've been painting this for a while and I've got like 8,000 points. And I've played like one game.
Yeah.
and so, no, there's apparently a lot of people who just like putting them together and painting them. And I think I'm one of them.
I have a mini series idea. Why don't we do like a paint and sip led by Josh where we each get our own little model and we just sit and
we can make that a regular thing, just recreational, but also recorded.
As Bob Ross. You need to dress up as Bob Ross.
We all need to dress. We all need to dress as Bob Ross.
And we'll do a happy little alien right here. There are no mistakes, just happy little alien eggs.
I just think it's so cool because miniatures have really taken off, and like building and painting has really taken off as far as tabletop. Like whole like almost little ecosystems are made on boards and stuff now. So this is like super fascinating to me.
No, and it's they've gotten so cool. Again, like this versus when I tried to do this 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And the difference is 25 years ago, the masters were sculpted by people, like with clay and stuff like that. And now everything's done on a computer. And so you have just these insane amounts of detail. And there's actually a lot of people who complain about it now. How, 20 years ago, there wasn't so much extraneous BS that you had to try to paint on every single little model. I think it's fun. But I could also 100% get where they're coming from. Because, if you get super detailed, like one of these dudes can take 4 or 5 hours to paint.
I love that.
I try not to do that.
Oh.
But, well, no, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I take a long time with each one of them. But, like, could I take even longer? Probably.
I just think it would be something cool. Like, if you just want to check out of reality for a while and just.
100%. You can do this and completely forget about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like comparing it
to meditative.
Yeah. Comparing it to my creative hobby, like my hands-on hobby, building Lego. You're saying a single one of these figures takes 4 or 5 hours. If you're, an average painter for it, building an entire Lego set takes me 4 or 5 hours, but that's the entire set. Like your entire set could take a couple of days.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's more bang for your buck. It is expensive, but it's more bang for your buck because it takes longer.
Like
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you've got some rather, you got really these mech looking characters, and then you have some really grotesque looking characters here as well. So what's the major differences that we're looking at here with these really horrible looking bug creatures with brains sticking out of there?
Yeah.
And then you've got these knights and these mech guys.
So for our YouTube videos or viewers, we do have this new camera here. We're going to be zooming in on these figures. So if you're listening over on podcast, go check out YouTube, youtube.com/@eatsleepnerd. Find the video version of this episode. We can actually see all these things that Josh is painting. He has an entire display here that he's going to be walking through for us. So we're zooming in on these. What are we looking at first?
So these are some of my favorites. It's probably about, probably about a quarter of what I've painted in total. But the first ones that everyone always notices are the Tyranids. These actually just got a big remodel, like their whole lineup has new sculpts, and they've all been updated. I think the other models were getting a little bit older, so a lot of these just got redone for the 10th edition of Warhammer, which launched just a few months ago. But the Tyranids are supposed to be the really big, super scary alien threat. Because there's just nothing even remotely human about them, right? They're the animalistic alien threat. They don't care. They're going to eat you. That's what they want to do. And what's neat about them is they're a spacefaring species that has zero technology. Everything about them is a living component. So like their spaceships are just very large Tyranids that carry other Tyranids across space. Like it's neat, and something that they've kind of introduced fairly recently in the lore is that they adapt. And so if they land on a planet that can't support their life or whatever, that first invasion wave dies, but as they're being bred, the new ones can survive there. And they just adapt instantly.
I love that.
Yeah, so they're supposed to be horrifying because like when you give it that set of conditions, again, you're not going to win. You might win the battle, but like just long term on a long enough timeline, there's no way you're going to win.
They can adapt to anything.
Correct. On the,
I love that. I think that's really cool.
No, it's great, but it's also a little terrifying.
Yeah,
That's why she loves it.
So here I have a couple of my favorite Space Marines that I've painted. So Space Marines are your, again, kind of started as the generic super soldiers, right? They're enhanced. They've got armor. Stuff like that, all the normal sci-fi BS.
Mm-hmm.
But these are two of my favorites. That is a biologist right there. His only job on the battlefield is to collect samples of Xenos, and so that they can be studied. And so it gives you like buffs to your units, things like that. If you attach him to a unit of Space Marines, they do better if they're fighting aliens because they've got the guy who's collecting samples and can tell them what's going on, things like that. Like it literally changes the rule set if you have him with you.
Interesting.
Next to that is one of my captains, which is one of my favorites because I actually had a conversion kit to make him part of the Death Watch. And what's cool about the Death Watch is they're supposed to be a very elite set of Space Marines that come from every chapter. So like you can be an Ultramarine and get pulled for duty with the Death Watch. And what's neat is when you go back to your unit, you get to keep the Death Watch pauldron. So a lot of people have started like adding like one or two just in their armies because it's neat, right? And you get to keep the lore.
Add some depth to the story of your own lore.
Correct. Yeah. Like you can build up, and there's a game mode for that where every new battle is not a whole new army. Like it's supposed to be a continuation from before. It's a campaign mode.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so like those little tidbits they just make it more fun. In the middle is the Custodes trivia piece. This is Henry Cavill's newest army. This is the one he's been playing. The Custodes are actually the Emperor's bodyguard. So the Emperor of Mankind is a pretty big figure, and I'm actually building a diorama that has the Emperor of Mankind in it. I'm really excited about it. I've been 3D printing it. But he's supposed to be thousands of years old. If you get super into the lore, there's even a rumor that like he was originally Jesus and things like that. And like,
wow!
And like he's been
cool.
in the histories trying to unite mankind since forever.
Gotcha. So he's like all these big,
all these big, So
history.
like when he was Jesus, he was trying to do it through peace and love and religion and stuff like that. Then he tried it as Genghis Khan through violence, and then he tried it like it's
Gotcha.
neat, right? And it kind of ties it together.
That's kind of neat.
But anyway, he's supposed to be essentially kind of the next level of human evolution.
Mhm.
And he eventually does succeed in uniting mankind just in time to be a spacefaring civilization that encounters all this BS. And because, of course. But anyway, so these are supposed to be the best of the best of the best. And to denote that, like I kind of like built up their bases a little bit so they would literally stand taller, even if they were next to like a regular space marine. Like I wanted them to be bigger. And this has become kind of a popular faction for people who are starting out because literally their points are so heavy that if you wanted equal points armies to fight each other, you would only have to prepare like half of these guys versus the other one, just because they're so ridiculously overpowered.
Okay, so you have an overpowered faction. How do you balance that out?
It's all points based. So again, if you're bringing 2,000, that means you might have 100 little Tyranids. But if I bring 2,000 of Custodes, I'm bringing like 20 dudes.
Got it.
So the number of people might be different, but the points value is the same. So you have to adjust for that. So like,
yeah. So my question is like, what's to stop you from bringing 40 of these guys?
You're not allowed to, because that would be too many points.
That's okay. So you're only allowed a certain number of points.
Correct. You can come in at fewer points.
Got it. Okay.
But especially if it's like a tournament, they're not going to let you be a single point over.
Got it. Okay.
What you are. Yep.
Were you picking that up before, or was I just dense?
So the way that I was understanding it is, there's a certain set of points. So say it's 20. What was it? 20,000. What is it?
It's 2,000 points.
2,000
is considered
points.
like an army.
Okay.
Yep.
So 2,000 points. So that's what your game is for. So you can doesn't matter how many it is, as long as it equals the
2,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
that's kind of the way that I was understanding that. I was
this captain is 300 points.
Gotcha.
Right.
Right.
Like I can bring whatever else I want to, but my
Now you're
total
down to-
cannot exceed.
Right. So now you're down to like 19,700 points. Or sorry, you said 2,000. So 1,970 points.
Something like
Right.
Stop while you're ahead, Jason.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait. Okay.
1,700 is the
Yes.
number he was looking for.
So you're down to 1,700 points.
So I think sorry, I should probably talk into the mic. So the cool thing that I don't think we've really touched on yet is that you can really customize these the way you want. Like you don't have to build them and paint them the way that the rulebook says.
Correct.
Because like you were just mentioning, you made those guys taller by actually adding on an additional stand.
Correct.
Like you don't have to do that.
There are rules for customization.
Okay.
If you're going to be in tournaments, right? Like if you're playing with your friends, who gives a toot? Do whatever you want. But usually the general rule is customizations are okay as long as they don't give you an advantage, right? So like, for example, when you're determining your shoot phase, you literally do it by line of sight. Like you would kneel down and like, can my dudes literally see the other people, right? So me making my guys taller can only hurt me, right? Because if they're behind short cover and I've made them taller, that's
You can't get covered.
yeah, that's an opposite of a handicap. Like I'm literally making it harder. Now, if I'd done the opposite and tried to like somehow make them smaller or more covert or something like kind of decrease that hitbox, then that's probably not going to be allowed. They're probably going to tell me that's not okay.
Got it.
But yeah, for the most part, that's the biggest rule is just you can't use customization to your advantage.
So you can have like different color schemes then, right?
Yeah, 100%. Space Marines can literally be any color under the sun.
That's awesome.
And again, for the most part, people, if you come in with like a fuchsia pink army, the first thing people are going to tell you is, dude, that's sick.
Yes.
Like anytime I've ever shown these to anyone else who does Warhammer, like it has never been anything except for compliments.
That's cool.
Like people just get stoked to see it.
So a really supportive community too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've not met another Warhammer person who's been like a douche
Snobby.
nugget. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah.
But I mean, every hobby has them. But like for the most part, people are usually just stoked that they found another person who plays Warhammer.
Yeah, and like for this one of your Space Marines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that green of the glow of the lamp, like that wasn't a part of the rulebook. You just did that yourself.
Yes.
Like that was a cool little detail that you added just to add some detail.
I
looks so
love the
cool.
creative freedom of that. That makes me like want to do this myself. It's
a lot of fun, and it's a rabbit hole. Like the only thing that I've come across that kind of makes me frustrated is that like you do get better and you get better fast. And so it's like after your 100th minifigure, you look back at your first ones and you're just like, well,
that's with anything. Yeah.
But like, because it's an army, you also want them all to match.
Sure.
So then you start repainting the first ones you've done. But then by the time you get done repainting them, you're even better than when you decided to repaint them.
It's just a vicious
cycle. And it's a vicious cycle of wanting to start over and over and over and over again.
Are there support groups for this?
No.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Maybe we should start one.
Sounds like
but let's see here. So to keep the tour going, and again, I actually love these two sets coming up because it again touches on the grim darkness, which by the way, this franchise is where that term came from, grimdark, in the grim darkness of the 40th, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, but the Necrons are supposed to be the oldest race in the universe. And originally, they were not robotic at all. They were like people. And their home planet had such ridiculously harsh conditions that like no one lived to be older than like 25. Like you lived to be old enough to make babies and you probably died. And so they went up to their gods and they were just like, please, like, help us, please. And so eventually their gods were just like, you know what, bro? I got you. All I need you to do is step into this machine over here and it'll give you a body that lasts forever. And they were like, that sounds like a deal. And he's just like, but if you do it, I need a favor. And he's like, I got a little war I'm fighting with hell. And so I'm going to give you these bodies, but I need you to help me fight my hell war. And they're just like, sure, dude, whatevs. So they do it. What they didn't know is that it robbed them of their everlasting souls and they're just living robots. And the war that he was fighting was with the warp and all the chaos gods who feed on souls. So now he's sending an army in of soulless robots.
So there's nothing to feed on.
Correct. So they can actually win. And they do win and then begin their everlasting existence of nothing. And they become so angry at their gods that they kill their gods and then go to sleep for billions of years until mankind starts traveling through the warp and it awakens them.
And they're angry at being woken up.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. I would be.
So, yeah. And then on top of that, they're pissed because they still can't feel or experience or anything like that. So again, no one is happy. Yeah. No one is in a good place here.
Right.
And then this is one of my favorite things, which I only recently fully understood the lore behind. So this is a dreadnought, which is great. I love the dreadnought. I just thought it was cool. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's a mech. It's cool. That's a sci-fi thing. It's a mech. That's great. Yeah. But no, this is Warhammer and it's sad and it's dark. And so if you look closely in the middle where the pilot sits, you'll notice that is not a pilot's chair. That's a casket. Because when your bravest warriors die on the battlefield, they pick up their bodies, force them to keep living, and this is a sarcophagus.
Oh,
that's awesome!
So that they have to
really cool.
So that they have to continue to fight.
That is so.
So even in death, you're not freed from battle.
Correct. If you were good enough.
That's fantastic.
I love this.
Yeah. So it's and there's a.
Why is the darkest thing the coolest thing?
I know, right? And so there's a few Warhammer 40K like animated movies. And all the nerds that watch this, if they're Warhammer people, are going to call me out for not remembering what the name of it was. But I've only watched it one time, but it was amazing. And one of the characters was one of the dreadnoughts. And he dies holding off this like horde of aliens. And like he goes down fighting and like his casket's blown open. And one of the medic Marines comes over to try to like put him back together. And he just can't. And the Marine starts crying, saying, I can't save you again. I can't save you again. And the dreadnought, the lights start like flickering and like going off. And all he says is, I wish I could have seen the sky again. And then he dies. Like that's all it was. Because he died in space. He never even got to go home. And he's supposed to be like 2,000 years old. Because once you're in there, like you can run forever. Yeah. Right. So it's ridiculous. But like, again, it's not a good time for anybody. But that's like the coolest thing about it is like anytime you think it couldn't really be worse, it is, and they figured out a way to make it worse.
Huh.
This makes me so excited for this, like Henry Cavill's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like and that's the coolest thing about it, especially since they have said nothing about what it's going to be about.
Yes.
Like they could do so many different things.
I think like, because Henry Cavill, if you ever watch his interviews about this, he is so passionate about
He is
Warhammer.
so excited.
And like with this kind of lore, like this hypes me up.
Yeah.
Like I want to know more about this and like how it's going to affect this and how they've caused this. And like, I definitely am looking forward to this. And it makes me want to like look more into the lore.
Yeah. I can't stress it enough. Like if you like sci-fi at all, it is the coolest thing in the world. They have literally one of the largest, literal like libraries, like books, like out there. I think it's like they've got over 100 books now, something like that. Like it's
so
it's
awesome.
massive, and almost every time they put out a new one, it ends up at the top of the New York bestsellers list.
Really?
Like people get super into it, and there's a whole group of people, and you always see it online. It's like, I didn't know it was anything other than books. Like they had no idea that it's a tabletop game or video games or movies or anything else. Like there's a million different people who get into this universe and had no idea how big the universe really is.
There are a lot of people like that anyway.
Yeah, like it is so cool though.
That's really awesome.
Like it kind of makes me want to read the books, to be completely honest.
Yeah. And there's a million, and they have some that are really long runs. The most popular one is the Horus Heresy, which is actually Warhammer 30K because it's 10,000 years before 40K.
Mm.
But that's about when half of the Space Marines went over to the side of Chaos, and there was a big civil war that ensued, and it ended with the more or less death of the God Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to save him, they put him into his golden throne, which is the diorama that I'm building. And so like in modern 40K, he's this like shriveled husk that's just hooked up to this machine. And the only reason they even keep him doing it is because he's the only one that is a powerful enough psychic to keep their astronavigation systems going. And so if he dies, then literally everyone who's traveling through the warp is lost forever. And that's also the only way that like interstellar commerce works and everything like that. And it's like they feed him like 1,000 psychers a day so that he can absorb their psychic energy to keep him going, just so he can keep all the machinery going. And it's like, again, it's
so
dark.
deep.
It's nothing but dark.
Yeah.
Like
So
it's
dark,
intricate. It's incredibly intricate.
Yeah, and it's so cool.
It's amazing to hear this kind of creativity in such a dark way.
Well, so I mean, like it's
that.
so like it's been going since the 80s. So we're coming up on like 40 years that they've had to like build this lore and to make it darker and darker and darker
and more expansive.
And more expansive.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I first thought you said more expensive.
Well, that
there's
too.
the two.
But
I do want to take a moment because Ryan, for those of you that are listening or watching, I am on TikTok Live right now. And Ryan says that he just hopes they take the same care that they have with Fallout.
Yeah.
So we watched the first episode, and we're gonna do a review of it. Like
actually, by the time this airs,
by the time this airs, you've probably seen it. I loved it so far. Like I thought it's incredible, and I would say generally speaking, Amazon hits way more than they miss.
Yeah,
I can't think of a miss.
And they're so slept on because everyone focuses on Netflix and Hulu.
Yeah.
And Disney Plus right now, but Amazon Prime has a lot of really great series.
Yeah.
Good Omens was great.
I love Good Omens.
Yeah. Jack Reacher.
Yes.
Well, I guess just Reacher.
Yeah,
Jack
Reacher.
Ryan. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings was mostly good.
Yeah. Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like I had
enjoyed
issues, but it was like 95% good.
Yeah.
But no, and then on top of that, again, they've got Henry Cavill, and part of his contract negotiation was to be a showrunner and an executive producer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like he's not going to let them mess it up.
Good.
They're not going to pull a Witcher.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Where he was way more invested than they were.
Yes.
Sadness.
Yeah.
That's because he's one of us. So
He gets it. Yep.
he does.
So we've talked a lot about the tabletop game and just the lore. Obviously, Amazon's series coming up soon. What is, aside from just the tabletop game, what is your favorite piece of Warhammer media? It's like video games, movies, books.
It's a tie. Most of the Horus Heresy novels are absolutely incredible. And again, if you really wanted to understand this universe fast and like get a crash course in it, like the first 3 or 4 novels of that are insane. It'll blow your mind. And then also Space Marine, the
Warhammer
video game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an oldie but a goodie. You can usually catch it on Steam now for like $20.
Yeah, it came out in like 2011, but still holds up.
Yeah, it's really good. And again, it'll give you a crash course on the lore. Like you'll understand real quick how everybody feels about everybody.
Yeah. We got a sequel coming up soon.
And the sequel's coming up soon. It got delayed. We were supposed to get it last fall, kind of going into like the holiday time.
Coming out this August-ish,
like late summer-ish.
Yeah, sometime this year.
What kind of game is it? Strategy?
It's third-person shooter.
Third-person shooter.
It does allow up to 3-player tactical
co-op,
multiplayer.
Yeah.
Co-op.
Okay.
And like they said, they delayed it to help polish it and finish it. Everything they'd shown off was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So if that's a rough cut for them, I'm very excited to see what the finished one looks like.
Yeah, like it was something like the month before it came out, they delayed it. And we were like, oh, okay, that's a weird delay. Then it was like a 1 year delay. It's like, oh, they're really trying to polish this.
I remember this. We did talk about this. Yeah.
Like we had plans to review it. And all of a sudden it was like delayed. It's like, it's supposed to come out like next week.
Yeah.
So
Were you guys talking about this last year when I joined?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, it's my joint anniversary.
I think so.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
We're making this about you, Brittany.
Sorry.
Well, no, but I mean, we met her at the expo.
That's right. We did.
Yeah.
I just had a light bulb.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Warhammer.
Welcome to the team.
Yeah.
And then you can randomly find just gemstones in the Warhammer media. We had something like Warhammer Bolt Gun come out this past year. That was just so far removed from everything else that it was just amazing.
That was good.
Yeah.
It's the boomer shooter.
Yeah.
Like it looks like Doom. Like old Doom, not new Doom. Looks like old pixelated Doom. And it's crazy. It's amazing. Again, that's another one you can probably find for like $20.
Yeah.
You can shoot your way through that.
Yeah, that just it kind of
it's
just
killer.
Like, it just kind of like illustrates how vast the Warhammer franchise is. Just you have so many different types of Warhammer that you can find, and pretty much anyone, regardless of what their taste is, can find something Warhammer that they can enjoy.
Yes.
So
I'm definitely like seriously gonna look more into it because that is like my jam right there.
Yeah. No, I mean, even if you did something really vague, like go to Wikipedia and look up the history of Warhammer.
Yeah.
good luck.
Like just the lore history or whatever. Like you can shoot through that and just be like, no.
I'll do that tonight when I'm fighting insomnia.
Yeah.
All right.
Like seriously, do it. It's good for
Having
you.
a plan is always.
All right. Any final thoughts? Let's wrap this up.
No, Warhammer's cool. You should look into it. More people need to know about it.
Yes.
I'm sure it'll blow up when the Amazon series does come out.
Yes.
But then that means before that happens, we need to get our Warhammer Bob Ross show going.
We need to do our
Beat the
paint
curve.
sip. Yes.
Yes.
That'd be so fun.
So stay tuned. We're going to start doing some live streams
Yes.
of us painting our Warhammer. You can join along. I'm putting it out there because we actually do it. But yeah. So if you're listening over on podcast or joining us over on YouTube, head on over to youtube.com/@eatsleepnerd. Leave a comment on this video. Let us know how you feel about Warhammer. Let us know how you feel about Josh's figures. We'll do one last close up here. Look at all those cool things. This is not even all of Josh's collection. Like, this is just a little sampling. We actually just... What?
I was going to say, thank you for doing this, Josh.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
cool.
I put him on the spot. Like,
I was gonna say no. Thanks for being interested in seeing them.
It's I love it because you're so passionate about it and like your face lights up when you talk about it.
It makes me happy.
I think that's cool.
Like
But also it's really cool seeing these in person after you post them in our group chat.
Yeah, I blow up the group chat every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like they know I haven't painted in a little while because I haven't been posting 87
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah. So
all right.
I love it. Warhammer.
Warhammer. Woo! For the Emperor.
It's Warhammer time.
All right.
And that's enough. Ba-da-da-da.
All right. Take it easy, people.